Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast. This is your host, Brittany, and today we are joined by Rita Hogan. She is the author of The Herbal Dog, and she is a holistic canine herbalist. So, Rita, thank you for joining us.
I am excited to be here. Love it.
So, tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
So I am a clinical herbalist. I work in my own clinic I have worked with probably thousands of dogs over the last 20 years. It's been 2 decades, kind of like, wearing different hats along the years.
Mm-hmm.
But I work with dogs that are having a hard time finding healing modalities that are working for them. And I work with a lot of vets and I help them. I am a member of the Veterinary Botanical Medical Association, which is a veterinary association. I'm a non-veterinary member. And it's kind of a mix between consulting. I do a lot of formulating for companies. I do a lot of writing. I'm an author, and I make a lot of medicine. So I make a lot of herbal medicine. I teach other people how to make herbal medicine. I do a lot of teaching. I have a teaching platform. So I have a podcast. So I do a lot of teaching in all different levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely do a lot, and we're going to jump into some of that. So for those listeners who are not familiar with herbalism or being an herbalist, tell us a little bit about, what does that mean? How did you get into this line of work?
So being an herbalist means that you're working with plant modalities. So you are working with different forms of plant medicine and directly with the plants. And herbalism can take on many hats, but my hat is working with dogs specifically. I also work with cats and some horses, but I do work with people. Usually it's people who have dogs. So I got into this. My dad was a very avid farmer and gardener, and he taught me a lot about the plants around us, and I would go pick things for my dad and bring it back, and he would give it to the horses and cows and chickens. And he wouldn't consider himself an herbalist, but people knew herbalism back then, right? I'm in my 50s, and so I was doing things in the 70s and as a kid. So then fast forward until I studied an Eastern medicine modality called Ayurveda. When I was in my late 20s, middle 20s to late 20s, and it just didn't click for me. I went back to the plants that I grew up with, which is what's called Western herbalism, and not to be mistaken for Western medicine, but they are the plants that are in our northern hemisphere in the United States, Canada, and parts of Europe like England, Ireland, places like that. They're the plants that are right outside your doorstep in many places, unless you're in the desert, but we still encompass those types of plants too. So a lot of people can't identify the plants around them, but they're there. And there are a lot of them that I use to better the lives of animals all over the world. So I'd say I'm knee deep in it right now. And those plant remedies, they are dried plants, dried powdered plants, dried bulk plants, tinctures, extracts. Like with dogs, a lot of them will have glycerin-based extracts, some alcohol extracts. I work with plant stem cells in a different capacity. I'm definitely a nerd. And flower essences, essential oils. A lot of people are familiar with essential oils. So I have a lot of different modalities, and I work with mushrooms and cannabis medicines. There's a lot that it just depends on where you want to go as an herbalist.
Yeah. So in the past few years, and anyone that's listened to this podcast, they know that I've become more and more, I don't want to say obsessed, that's not the correct word here, but more inclined to lean on plant medicine, whether it be different mushrooms. So people have heard me talk about my older dogs that are 16 and 14 developing somewhat dementia, like a doggy dementia, and how lion's mane made a tremendous difference in their behaviors. Using one of our dogs had cancer, we got the tumor removed. After that, started using turkey tail because I know turkey tail has a lot of cancer fighting agents, and the cancer he had was very aggressive, and they said it might come back. We've been lucky it hasn't come back. So, I've started working with in the mushroom realm. My dogs have always taken a CBD product, which we've switched several times because you learn more as you go, especially as you work with other professionals. But I don't think I've really worked with any other kinds of plants, any like everyday plants. And I know for myself, I've tried a little bit of like oil of oregano. So oil of oregano is my antibiotic of choice. If I get strep throat, if I get a virus, whatever it might be, oil of oregano has been my go-to. And so this topic is interesting for me because I think we can learn a lot for humans and for dogs. And so we'll stick with dogs, of course, because it's a dog podcast. But let's talk a little bit about canine herbalism. And so are there conditions you see more frequently than others that people come to you for, or kind of like top conditions that people want to use different herbs for?
Absolutely. So the main things that people come to me for are things like pain, arthritis, acid reflux, leaky gut, not being able to eat proteins, itching, scratching, biting, yeast infections, definitely cancer.
Mm-hmm.
For a cancer support protocol, nervousness, anxiety, restlessness. Some people, I don't treat disease because I'm not a medical doctor. So I work at helping the body balance itself out. So if someone comes to me for like a heart murmur, I'm going to give heart herbs that will help balance that heart out so that it doesn't have a murmur. But I'm not treating the murmur specifically.
Right.
A lot of things that I deal with, because I'm a holistic canine herbalist, so I deal with the dog as an ecosystem, as a mind, body, spirit. A lot of people understand that kind of as a definition of holistic. But I come to the table with everything is connected.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we don't realize that the heart's connected to the lungs, connected to the lymphatic system, connected to the nervous system, connected to the kidneys and liver. And I think the nervous system is one of the most important things in the body, along with the lymphatic system. And some people don't even know what the lymphatic system is.
Right.
So I'm really big on educating people on how the body works so that we can use herbal remedies to help balance your dog out. And I'm a big proponent of low vaccination, not no vaccination, but low vax. In the dog world, it's literally only one area where we vaccinate our dogs and cats over and over and over and over again for the same vaccination. And that's not how vaccines work. And so we see a lot of vaccine damage. I see a lot of it. Itching, scratching, biting, toxic heavy metals. I'm a big advocate of testing.
Mm-hmm.
I love testing. I work with a couple labs in the United States, Innovative Pet Lab, Pet Mandela, Omega Quant. These are things that checking omega-3 levels and checking vitamin D levels, which is essential. You don't want to supplement vitamin D until you check, but a lot of dogs are either too high or too low. So I'm a big proponent of working with your veterinarian or working with some of these testing facilities so you can figure out what's going on, and then we can help with diet and water quality and food quality and just kind of do baby steps to improve a holistic lifestyle. Because for me, a healthy dog is a way of life, and it's not something you can keep in stasis, right?
Right.
You can be healthy on Friday and then start ignoring your dog, or all of this applies to humans, ignoring yourself or your dog. On Monday, you start eating Big Macs and chips every 5 minutes. That level of health is going to start going down, or you get exposed to a toxin, or there's so many things going on in our world right now. It's very polluted. A lot of people have climate change discussions. Well, here's the thing. Change the language. Let's talk about pollution.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot deny pollution. Pollution is everywhere. It's affecting all of us, and it definitely affects our dogs. And I also, the mind and spirit part, I'm a big proponent in taking care of ourselves, because when we are healthy, our dogs are much healthier in that they share our emotions with us. That's a big proponent of herbalism. in that I do a lot of herbalism for the nervous system, like lion's mane, or things like passion flower, California poppy, and ashwagandha, different things that help nettle bud, nettle seed. They help the body deal with stress because our stress is their stress.
Right.
We share a lot. I deal with that in my book. Like our dogs are definitely our mirrors. And when we take care of our own mental health, we are taking care of our dog's health because our dogs are really concerned about us, and we smell, right? Dogs interact with their environment through the olfactory system, their smell. And a lot of people are stressed out, especially people that are on their phones a lot. You smell like cortisol and adrenaline because phones are designed to make you go into fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
And, the rings, the bells, the whistles, and all that stuff. And our dogs are like, you smell like you're stressed. What's the matter? What's the matter? Should I be worried? Should I be worried? And a lot of people don't think about those things when it comes to the word herbalism.
Mm-hmm.
But the plants can really help with everything, just depending on the modality that you're using. But yes, I mean, those are all, I deal with a lot of anxiety, restlessness, and usually the people that hire me are anxious and restless. So we have a lot of crossover.
Yeah, that sounds like our most recent rescue dog, so anxious. And I'm like, we worked with the trainer and he did a board and train. She was like, I think you're half the problem. And I'm like, not me. It's true. It's absolutely true. And it's so funny. Like he picks up on little things and he like knows when I'm going to wrap up work. He knows when I'm on certain calls. Like he's just so intuitive with like when my stress or anxiety raises, he's like, Mom, do you need something? Like I'm here. So it's funny you mentioned that and kind of talking about stress and plant medicine. Something that we started to implement in our house a couple years ago was started moving more towards like a non-toxic lifestyle with our cleaners, the candles we use, the products we purchase. And I do think that has an effect on our dogs. Our dogs burning, I don't want to say any particular brands, burning particular candles that have such a strong fragrance can certainly affect our dogs. And using certain cleaners, especially when your dog might go lick the floor later if something drops and depending on what you cleaned with. So I think it all certainly ties together and kind of brings us back to our origins of going back to nature and getting back to like, here's what's provided, here's what we should be using internally, externally in our environment to reduce our overall load of toxins.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of those, we will not mention the names of those candles and those plugins, and the scent boosters are the biggest thing now. You want yourself to smell for 12 days. When I'm on a plane, I pray. I sit there and pray, please do not let a scent boosted person sit next to me, because I'm going to have to smell that for the next 4 hours. And you get immune to that smell, right?
Yeah.
It's really hard on dogs. It's really hard on people. A lot of people are like, well, they wouldn't make them if they were toxic. Yes, they would.
Absolutely.
And they are.
Right.
And they definitely are. And so, yeah. And I think anything that we do to decrease our toxic load is beneficial, because disease is opportunistic, and our body, when it's out of balance, just waits for the right moment where our pathogens can say, okay, that immune system is down. I think I'm going to go and I'm going to try to multiply. And a lot of people need to realize that, it's kind of terrain versus germ theory. We need to fortify our terrain. We need to be more resilient. We need to work on our resilience and our dog's resilience to disease, so we don't have to worry so much when there is an outbreak of this and an outbreak of that.
Right.
When we work, anytime you decrease your liver's load, it frees it up to do the important things that it needs to do in the body.
Right. Absolutely. So let's talk about your book. So it's called The Herbal Dog, Holistic Canine Herbalism Applications and Practice. So tell us about the book and how this came about.
Yeah, so I've been in practice a long time. I've been working at being an herbalist for a long time. And I started teaching a group of women holistic canine herbalism. So I love education. And I used to be very reclusive until someone talked me into I started writing for Dogs Naturally magazine. And then after that, someone talked me into start teaching. I just loved it. I loved teaching. I didn't know, but I loved it. And I'm very good at it. I'm good at breaking down complex things into things that are easy to understand without a lot of jargon. And so I met with these women every Thursday for 4.5 years, every single Thursday. I think we missed about 10 sessions in the 4.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. But they showed up and I showed up. So I wrote them a lesson every week. And I basically was writing a book.
Yeah.
And I took everything out of that mentorship that I felt was really important for someone just coming to the herbalism table and put it in a book. But there's also advanced things in here that if you are advanced in herbalism, you will understand them more. It's for any level of interest in herbs and helping your dog. It answers the introductory questions though of how much should I use? What type of, like, let's just say ashwagandha, right? Ashwagandha is, what type of ashwagandha should I use? Should I use powdered or should I use an extract? Where should I start? How much should I give? How long should I give it? How do I know if it's working?
Right.
When do I stop it? These are all things that I cover in the book. I cover, I don't know, I think over 30 herbs in the book in the back. I have a vitamin and minerals section. I've got a food section. I deal with what's called energetics, which helps you deal with your dog as an individual. And I have a good application section, which means that what do you do when your dog's going to have surgery? How do you help your dog recover from surgery? What if your dog has taken too many antibiotics? What do I do? What if my dog has yeast? What do I do? How do I help them with their musculoskeletal system? How do I help them with their nervous system? What if they're anxious or restless? I deal with all those things. What happens if your dog gets diarrhea? What do I do? And for instance, there's a medicine that if this, the standard of care means that if you go into your veterinarian, they have a standard of care for diarrhea. Okay. The standard of care for diarrhea is a drug called Flagyl, which is metronidazole. I always pronounce it wrong, but it's roughly that. But it's also called Flagyl. And it's the standard of care for diarrhea. And the issue with that drug is that it turns on inflammation markers. It genetically modifies the gut. And it's a gift that keeps on giving for years.
Yeah.
A lot of times you can get a dog that's itching, scratching, biting, won't stop, nothing's working. I'll look at their history and there it is. But they took it a year ago. Yep. And it's keeping on giving. So what can you use for diarrhea? Blackberry leaf. Blackberry leaf, here in the Pacific Northwest, it's everywhere. But it's really easy. You can even get blackberry tea in the grocery store. Blackberry leaf stops diarrhea in its tracks. It's amazing. I have a dog that has anal cancer right now. She's a 15-year-old basset hound. She's doing great. She was supposed to be gone about a year ago. She's doing fabulous. But if she doesn't take blackberry leaf, she gets bad diarrhea. And nobody likes diarrhea. Nobody.
Right.
Every pet owner out there, let's choose constipation or diet. I'll take constipation any day.
Yeah. Yeah.
She takes blackberry leaf once a day, a tincture and a full dropper because she's about a 60-pound dog. And if no one forgets to give it to her, she has nice little poops. But if they forget to give it to her, it's a very sad day. So, whereas if I didn't know about blackberry leaf, she would probably be on a pharmaceutical for diarrhea, and it would most likely be an antibiotic that she would have to stay on. And it would most likely be the Flagyl. So, I deal with basic things, constipation, vomiting. I mean, your basic kind of things that come up and what should I do? And I go over, when do you have to worry about vomiting? When do you have to worry about constipation? When should you bring your dog to the vet? I deal with allergies and sensitivities. I mean, there's so much in this book, and I think people are really going to love it. It's easy to use as well. And I even go over how to plan an herbal protocol. Like, where do you start? How do you know how many herbs should you give your dog?
Right.
A lot of people kitchen sink their animals because, they're desperate for an alternative method for something not working. that their
Yeah.
vet's giving them. And like, but I don't know what to do. And the book really provides that. Like, this is how you figure out what herbs to choose from. Because I think all dog owners have like a graveyard of supplements that, they buy and this doesn't work, this doesn't
Yeah.
work. Or, also like, how do I know if my dog's kidneys need help? How do I know if my dog's liver might not be up to par? So I deal with all of those things in my book, but they're definitely from my practice, from teaching, and the most important things that I think are that I've experienced affecting dog owners across the board. And I think the important thing, like to toot my horn, is that my book meets people where they're at. So, I talk about people who feed kibble. I talk about people that might feed like home cooked or raw or freeze dried.
Right.
We have a lot of different food varieties out there right now. And so my book addresses all of those. I don't do any, I don't do
Yeah.
that. I offer things to take steps every day to improve your dog's ecosystem. And we are an ecosystem. And when that ecosystem gets unbalanced, everything is connected. And so things start to go downhill.
Right. Right. One question that I have, and this is recurring, this happens for, again, humans and animals, is sourcing and where to buy. Do you have guidance, whether it's in the book or anywhere else, on where should we buy these different herbs? What do we look for when we're trying to trust a brand and know it's truly what we think it is?
Yeah, so I go over a few things in my book, but my book has a website
Okay.
called the Herbal Dog. And it has a website, and it has a sourcing section. Throughout the book, you might see theherbaldog.com for more information. So I have what kibbles I recommend, what freeze-dried I recommend, what raw, what home-cooked. I'm not affiliated with anybody. There's no affiliations on my website, except if you go under my book tour, I have sponsors, but that has nothing to do with what I'm recommending. Then I have a sourcing section. I'm working on the sourcing, more sourcing right now, but I have the UK, Australia, Canada, and the United States. I carry a lot of tinctures, but next year in 2027, I'll be carrying dried herbs and extracts. But I'm working with a couple herb farms right now to get some really quality things. But, a lot of people order from a company called Mountain Rose Herbs, mountainroseherbs.com. They have been around for a really long time. They're outside of Oregon. In fact, I'll be going by their farm in the beginning of February here. But they are excellent at sourcing, but there's a lot of other sources, and I'm going to have them on the website so you won't have to worry about that.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people, you'll get something on Amazon. It's quick. It's convenient. It's cheap. The keyword there was cheap. You try it a week. You're like, it didn't work. And it's like, well, number one, it's probably the product you bought. But number two, most things are not going to work in a week. And so you mentioned you have some guidance in your book with respect to how long should I try this or that kind of thing.
I have a whole chapter on expectations. Because expectations are a big deal because we're pharmaceutically trained. And, we've only been away from the natural world for about 80 to 100 years.
Yeah.
And I've lived 50 of them. So, we were a lot more attached to the natural world when I was a kid. So I would say really hardcore for about 40 years. We've been just hardcore pharmaceutical. And we're used to pharmaceuticals, taking a pill and then working within like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that you can get lucky with some herbs. Flower essences, some homeopathic remedies work very quickly. Depending on what you're like, if it's anxiety or like fear, it can bring down that stuff right away. But for chronic disease, it takes time, roughly between 6 to 12 weeks. The main goal is to move in the right direction. If you're not moving in the right direction, there's two things that are happening. It's the wrong herb or the wrong formula, or the dose is wrong. Right? If there's side effects, wrong herb or dose. Everything is dose. Toxicity can be dose. We can kill ourselves with water.
Right.
A lot of people are afraid of herbs, which here's my shtick on that. I don't know if you've ever watched normal TV lately or football. You will see, if you watch football, you will see pharmaceutical ads. And at the end, they have almost all of the pharmaceuticals that are advertised on TV include death. They include a non-curable virus.
Mm-hmm.
That's super fun. They include vomiting, diarrhea, low appetite or ravenous appetite.
Mm-hmm.
They include like huge side effects, problems with vision, problems with cancer. Cancer is one of them. So non-toxic herbs, which is the ones I deal with in my book, non-toxic herbs don't have those types of things.
Right.
They may have a little vomiting, a little diarrhea. Usually, again, wrong herb, wrong dose.
Mm-hmm.
It's always the case. But herbs aren't going to cause cancer. They're not going to cause death.
Right.
And a lot of the times you'll go on Google and look up, can my dog have garlic? Can my dog have chamomile? Can my dog have peppermint? And Google's one of the worst places to get information about herbs. Like dogs can eat garlic. They need to eat fresh garlic and they only eat a tiny bit of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've been feeding my dogs garlic for 16 years. All my life, actually. My dogs growing up, my dad fed small amounts of garlic. He used it as an antibiotic. But, you go on Google and it's going to say garlic is going to cause Heinz anemia and it's going to kill your dog. That is based on a crazy junk science study. And it's tons, grams and grams and grams and grams and grams of garlic.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to give their dog that type of garlic. It's interesting. And, chamomile's bad for your dog. No, it's not. There's two types of chamomile. There's Roman chamomile and German chamomile. And I don't use Roman chamomile with animals. It's a little more irritating, a little more toxic. Toxic doesn't mean deathly all the time. It can mean like dogs will get diarrhea or vomiting. They'll get irritated, itching, scratching, might have make them feel kind of lethargic for a little bit. German chamomile is fine. It's fine. And plants belong to certain families, like German chamomile belongs to the Asteraceae family. And a lot of humans and dogs can be a little sensitive to that family. Usually with dogs, it's like excessive itching and scratching. Mm-hmm. Like if that doesn't go away in 3 days, you stop whatever you're doing and try something else.
Right.
But there's not toxicity to the point where it's causing harm.
Mm-hmm.
I think when people don't understand something, fear comes in the way, right?
Yeah.
Fear. But I think that like if you follow any type of holistic medicine or follow any type of, I would say, mind-body connection modalities, you're going to see how detached we are from nature. And it's having a huge effect on us, negative effect, right? Because you go in nature, it's scientifically proven that trees help the immune system. It's scientifically proven that they give off certain chemicals that actually raise serotonin. Plants are our friends. Yes, there's poisonous plants out there, for sure. You need to know what you're doing. But all of the plants in my book are non-toxic in different degrees. So there's a lot of plants that are our allies and that can make us feel a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Where can people find your book at?
Sorry, I had to take a little drink. My book is anywhere you buy books. So it's traditionally published. It's anywhere you buy books. Barnes & Noble, Amazon. Thrift Books has a sale right now. You save about $6 and it's free shipping. Thriftbooks.com.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in the UK, you can buy it on Amazon. If you're in Canada, you can buy it on Amazon. If you're in Australia, I think you can buy it on Amazon. But yeah, you can get it at bookshop.com and you can get it at your local bookstore. You just walk in there and say, I'd like to pre-order the Herbal Dog. It comes out on February 4th. And you can pre-order it now. Pre-orders always help. I don't know why, but it's true. It's a thing right now, I guess. It's a thing. Yeah. So anywhere you can get a book, you can find my book.
And then outside of your book, where can people find more about you? Where can people find your podcast? All of that good stuff.
Okay, so in a nutshell, here's Canine Herbalist and Rita Hogan. So on Instagram, I'm at Canine Herbalist, Facebook at Canine Herbalist. I have a teaching platform, canineherbalism.com.
Okay.
And on there, I have a subscription community. It's called the Canine Herbalist Advisory. And that's where I answer questions. It's the best way to get a hold of me. It's $15 a month. We have live Q&A every month. And I do a lot of coaching on that platform for people. And then, let's see, I have Dogs Are Individuals podcast, which is free. Anywhere you get your podcast, I'm there. dogs or individuals. And then I have courses on the Canine Herbalism platform. I have a dental health course. I have a great natural flea course. I have a level 1 Canine Herbalism course that teaches you everything in my book, and more.
Mm-hmm.
And then at canineherbalist.com, I have a store with a lot of great products in it. And then I also have my consulting through there.
Awesome. You are not busy at all.
No.
We appreciate you coming on, sharing all of this with us. This is phenomenal information, and I just think it's going to be so helpful for so many people, whether they are looking to, add on to their dog's routine, they're looking to treat something, maybe they've been unsuccessful with Western medicine, a prescription. I think this is just going to be helpful for so many people. So thank you so much for being a guest.
It was a great conversation, so I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com, or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.